It's been 2 months. We're back. We've been fighting
Has it really
battles.
been 2 months?
It has.
Oh
And I
man.
just checked the last RC5 was 2 months ago. We have been building. Uh, we've also been battling on the Hacker News. I don't even want to give that so much attention, but I will mention it because it's been so present. Last week, Datastar was on the front page of Hacker News, not once, not twice, not thrice, but 4 times, which is kind of crazy. For anyone who doesn't know what Hacker News is, I applaud you. I don't really go there much, but it's a news site for supposedly for hackers, but I don't think many of the people up there actually care about tech as much as they care about criticizing and punching down on projects. So there was a lot of criticism about Pro and just the model and just the general approach that Datastar has taken without really looking at the tech. Um, but interesting things came out of that. There was an article about moving from HTMX to Datastar. I'm sure that'll come up later in the discussion, but I think I don't want to start specifically there. Um, Last month, September, some of these things are going to be old news because we've been meaning to record for a while. But Datastar turned 2 years old, so 0.0.1. The first version that was tagged was on the 7th of September 2023. So for anyone thinking, oh, Datastar is this new young project, I mean, it is 2 years old, which is a
And
decent
it's
chunk
older
of
than
time.
that. I just didn't ever like. I finally said I need to put it up there because it'll get lost if I do it this way. So it was
Right,
actually probably 4 or 5 months older than that.
right. And we're actually getting very close to tagging RC6. We have some really interesting things happening here, which we'll talk about. The most, I guess, important one being the public plugin API. So we are exposing things so that it's going to be much easier to create plugins, and we're in the process of documenting how that works. Um, so this is always something we've wanted to do, but we just had to be careful about the timing. But we're trying to coordinate it so that we're very close to a stable release. We're still in the RC, which gives us a bit of wiggle room, which we need um, to really like solidify the API. Because, like we've said many times, there should never be a V2. That's the plan. At least it's going to be V1 forever, and we will just have to eat whatever technical debt we end up having to create for ourselves. Um, but really, the only thing we can do is just draw out the RC phase, try and make sure that we've tackled anything that is a breaking change in this phase. Speaking of which, we are introducing a breaking change, quite a big one. It is just one character. We're changing a dash to a colon, but we are changing that in the syntax for attributes. So for example, data on click was data dash on dash data dash on dash click. That's now going to be data dash on colon click. So the colon is now going to be the delimiter between the plugin name and the key that is attached to it. And there's a good reason for that. There's also a good reason why we didn't do that originally. We believed that the colon was not allowed as per the HTML standard, and we've reviewed the spec since multiple times. And we did this back in the beta. We thought, let's use a colon as a delimiter for modifiers. We didn't do it. We chose an underscore instead. Now, magically, we have this new character available because you only get like 3 or maybe 4
It's like three.
special
We
characters.
thought it was two, really. The
Right.
irony is that it's almost like a D&D campaign with someone that's being a rules lawyer, which is usually me, as you can imagine. And the problem is one of our users, Gaspacho King, like came in and rules lawyered the rules lawyer, and I was not upset. I was like, "Oh, game recognized game. He's 100%
Yeah.
right." Because the way it's written, it's like this is the rules, except for in this subparagraph, chapter D, blah blah blah. Like the way he was 100% right, and that's the value of open source right there. Is that like people that care
Yes.
come in and do the right thing, and also to mention when you're talking about the public API, I have to put it out to Johnny in that he basically just went and made the public. Like he made a huge change. Took it on himself just because he wanted that to happen, and I was super thrilled. Like, it's great that like, if anything, it got better for Rocket and all these other things we're going to talk about. But this is the value of open source, is that the people that do care get in there and do make an effort and make it better. So it's none of this came from either of us. Actually, it was from the open source people, like other people that are doing good things. So just because you see the two of us doesn't mean that's the community or that we're being dictated. It's more like if someone comes up with a good idea, man, I want it now. So, and especially in the preview one. So I want to say thank you
Yeah.
to everyone that gets involved with this stuff. Sometimes it's easy to forget that it does take a village, and we desperately love that kind of effort. So thank you to both of them.
Yeah. Well, Johnny's of course in the core
Yeah.
contributor team, but still he took it upon himself.
Yeah.
Nobody pushed him to, or we didn't even discuss this. He just said he would like to make this happen, and we've always wanted it, so it worked
And
out
it's
great.
better. And the irony about it is that it's actually closer to my, if you look at 0.01, because it's funny, back in the day, I literally had like the core, like the tiny core, and a doc on how to write your own plugins. And I had, I think, two plugins, which was Data On and Data Adder. And that's all I did. Like, I was like, anyone who wants to write plugins, good luck. And then people were like, well, man, it'd be really good if you add more. So it's funny that we're getting back to generally the same API that I had originally, which is great. Like, it's a good thing. So like,
For sure. So just quickly going back to that character change, the dash to the colon, it does mean a big fat breaking change, but we have a regular expression that you can just do a search and replace on your entire code base. That's going to be in the change log, so it's very easy to get to that. Yeah, that's how it goes. We're still in the RC. Yeah, fortunately, we gave us that time, which allowed us to kind of make this change. And back to the spec, like the spec is just it's just difficult to parse, and it's just there are different versions of it. So yeah, so thanks to Gaspacho King, who's contributed multiple things. He's also made some PRs, which are likely to be um, merged in a different form, where we need to make some changes to it. But the general idea is coming into the next RC, so that's great. Yeah, a quick word on like like the RC and taking our time. I noticed, or I was reading about Veed, or maybe I saw an interview on Veet, and apparently Veet got to version 1 RC, and then they realized, oh, because it was only supposed to support Vue.js, right? It's the same author. At that point, Evan You decided, well, I could actually make this framework agnostic. So he rewrote the thing, and V1 stable actually was never released. They released V2. So we're trying to also avoid that situation where we've rewritten it twice. We're kind of internally on V3 plus.
or yeah,
So
closer to like V4, but yeah.
so it's difficult to time these things, because very often, and that's why things like React are at version 19, Vue is version 3, Svelte is at version 5. Like we're trying to not do that, because we're trying to make it so that when you pick up Datastar and you start using it in your projects, once Datastar is stable, you'll never have a breaking change.
Yeah, unless the browsers get a new feature or something, and even then, it shouldn't be a breaking change. It should be an addition. So we're really pushing for V1 to be the one, and everything to be built on top of it. So
Right. I made a change to the docs about 2 months ago now. I'm not sure if how aware you are of this, but from now on, we're recommending that people use the CDN version that is tagged to a specific the CDN link that is tagged to a specific version. Previously, we had like at main in the URL. That means it grabs the latest from the main branch. But now that we're introducing the plugin API, now that we are introducing, well, we don't plan on introducing breaking changes, but it still can happen. It's just safer to actually use a tagged version in the URL. So anyone who's still
it's a
on
great
that kind
idea.
of old CDN link, just update maybe when you update to RC6. Put well, you'll see it on the website. The other reason that's important is that you want people to be getting the latest version of Datastar. And if you're using the CDN link that is cached for a year or so, so they're going to still be on the old version, people who visited the site who've access to cached versions. So this prevents stale cached versions as well. So there's multiple benefits to doing that. In hindsight, maybe we should have done it from the beginning, but it's fine. That's going to be the standard recommendation going forward.
No, it was really smart. Yeah, why we didn't do it? It's 10,000 things, right? Like
Right.
you forget.
Uh, Again, like maybe this is old news, but NPM had its largest supply chain attack ever.
Multiple times,
There,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, there were packages with like over 2 billion weekly downloads that were compromised. It just kind of reinforces to me our decision of not supporting NPM and not even hosting on NPM. We used to, but we decided no, let's just go straight for GitHub because that's the source code and you can grab the library and do whatever you want directly with a GitHub link, or of course you can import it using the CDN. Or what I tend to do is just download it locally and or host it on the server itself, right? So you're not depending on any outside sources. But this just kind of to me brings back the point of npm is not the way forward, or it's not something we want to support. You may use it for your other things, but Datastar is uh, is not going to be hosted on there.
Well, and also the thing with that is like Datastar doesn't have any dependencies. Like there's no node modules that we
Yeah,
need. Like we're independent and like self-sustaining. So there like literally there's nothing but downside for people. So like I think that's just been a real it's funny coming from Go. There was this big thing of like just use the standard lib, like don't use any other
mm-hmm.
packages, and it was pretty hard nosed. I think that went a little too far because it's pretty easy to read, and there's no central repository in the way there is in npm. But the node module people went crazy the other way. Like like there's something in the middle is the right answer. Like it's great to look at other people's code and to be able to use Git to hook into things. Like I think Go's done a great job with packages, um, but man, npm's just the wrong way to do it. Like I think that's what people are realizing, that a monolith for this kind of stuff is scary.
I think everybody can feel it in their bones, right? That like fewer dependencies is better. Of course, well, Datastar is a framework, so that's like also maybe you should not be using it with all these other dependencies. Maybe that is your framework, and of course, if you need JavaScript libraries or you need to pull in some charts or something, that is possible, and it's about to get easier because you've done some incredible work on Rocket. Yes, I said Rocket. We jumped back and forth, Ion Rocket, but it is staying Rocket. And part of that is that you can very easily create a Rocket component that wraps another library. So essentially, you pull a library in, you'll wrap it in Rocket with like basically a single line, and then you can drive that library using Datastar. Do you want to say a thing or two about that?
Sure. So yeah, the whole thing about Rocket, if anyone hasn't been watching other podcasts, is the gist is web components is kind of how we say if you have state in the front end, it should be in a web component, right? The problem is like web components have to be this class interface that you can't do a functional approach. Like there's all these things that are just kind of annoying about it. And the irony is that for being such a declarative thing, the hypermedia, web components are not declarative at all, like not at all at all. So all I did was basically make it's kind of like Datastar. It's a simple idea of wrap things up so that you can do like standard template HTML tags and have script tags inside them, and then do literal regular Datastar stuff in your template. But you get access to a couple things like data for, data if, and you get scope signals, which is this dollar thing that automatically cleans itself after lifetime. The other thing that's interesting about it is that the data import thing that Ben's talking about, you do data import and you give it an ES module or a URL of code. And the nice part is it doesn't matter if it's TypeScript or ClojureScript or JavaScript or WASM even, you'll be able to import this stuff and then automatically pull in and we'll do all the right async stuff so that it only load after the right time. So the setup already has it as a object, all the right things so that you just start using it in your code. So we're taking, from what I've seen, it's at least a 3x less code. I think it's simpler, and it actually a lot of times is even bigger than a 3x difference. And the nice part too is there is, because it's just standard HTML, a Rocket library, or I want to call them pylons because of a whole thing, but these pylons are just literally templates in a HTML at an HTML endpoint. So it's just HTML. And it's just a couple of these things together. That's all a technically a pylon is, just a set of templates. So like I think we're doing the right thing in that we're not trying to reinvent, we're not trying to fight with lit, we're not trying to fight with this stuff. We're just taking stuff that you would already do in another library and turning it and making it declarative so that now you can hook into it from Datastar and all these other things. And it makes writing Datastar stuff or writing templates, writing web components a lot easier because Rockets or Datastar, I'm so confused. Datastar I think is the easiest way to hook into attributes because you get data on click, data on load, you get all those things. So the irony is, I wish that Inspector could use the Rocket stuff, but it's kind of a bootstrapping thing. I have to like write the thing to then write the thing kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to all this stuff going forward using Rocket because it's just so easy to write the right thing. In fact, the copy button became 0 lines of JavaScript. It's just some hooks into Datastar, which is pretty neat. So all the new stuff on the new site is now using Rocket. So I feel pretty confident where it's at, but I definitely think we're ready for an alpha release of it. Like I'm feeling pretty confident. So
Yeah.
but that goes back to
This,
what you guys are working on right now.
yeah. So just to also give some background, like we've been saying for a long time to anybody who's trying to integrate JavaScript libraries with Datastar, you should be using a web component. But we haven't had an answer for how, or what's the best way to do that. And writing web components is a lot of boilerplate. It doesn't give you much in terms of API. It gives you an API that you need to follow. You need to import it as a JavaScript file. So we're taking that approach and we're removing the boilerplate and giving you a declarative API. So just like data signals, the attribute, it's going to be data rocket, an attribute where you give it some props and just use it declaratively like any HTML element. Yeah, so Rocket is planned we'll be releasing an alpha version shortly after the RC6 or with the RC6, which should be coming in the next couple of days. We'll see. We just need to wrap it up and we'll see when we end up releasing that. A couple of other things have been happening in the meantime that I just want to call out. A Kotlin SDK was added. That's in my notes, so that must have happened since last time. So that's great.
There's also a Raku one coming. It's literally in the works right now.
Right, somebody's been working on that. Yeah, and well, I was busy I was in Portugal because I was there for a Craft CMS conference. I gave a talk essentially about Datastar, is about reactive collaboration, but guess how you drive that? You drive that with Datastar. So that got a really good reception. I did some audience participation demos, which was funny because I was like, I don't know how my server is going to act up. So I was doing load testing on the server, right? And I was doing 100 requests per second. And I thought that's, users interacting with my demo, we're never going to get more than 100 requests per second.
False.
Um, and even funnier is that like before I went up on stage, I said to a few people, hey, I'm going to do some demos. If you could have your phone out, just and take part. Because I just thought if 5 people or 10 people take part, it's going to work out. So when I put the URL up on the screen, and I said, yeah, you can go here and start interacting with it, I looked out at the audience and I saw 100 people go,
Yeah.
and they just hammered the demo.
No, I know.
So I was getting much more than 100 requests per second.
100
And my
requests
server
per second per person.
I don't know how fast you can tap, but I'm guessing like you can tap like 3-4 times per second
Oh, more
on
than
your
that for sure.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, if you're from StarCraft or anything like APM, those numbers can get crazy high. So yeah.
Yeah. So, but server held up just fine. The demos went fine. Chrome DevTools had an issue at one point during the talk, but that's because it was trying to handle 100 requests per second, like streaming down into the browser with DevTools open and the event stream window. But otherwise went great. Yeah, lots of people came up to me afterwards and said because we've talked about Sprig before. Sprig uses HTMX. Um, and many people said to me, yeah, I didn't know why I should upgrade from Sprig to Datastar or HTMX to Datastar. Uh, all of those people said, now I get it. Like it's just a different level. Now, in saying that, most people building sites with Craft CMS are just outputting lists and filtering lists and resorting lists and searching, live searching on lists. But you know, there are other advantages that I highlighted: the out of band swap thing and many things that we've talked about here. Um, yeah, and since that, then I went on to create a demo I'm calling Blinksy. So it's kind of like these blinking pixels, which was part of the conference talk, but this one is like fully multiplayer. So everybody can see the same version and you can interact with it. Blinksy, by the way, for anyone wondering, it's the Banksy of blinking pixels. That was kind of the idea.
Well, it looks
So
like you actually did some integrations with other silly demos as well. I saw this morning.
right. Well, the first challenge with it was I'm working with PHP, and PHP is single threaded. And anytime you're trying to do, hundreds or even thousands of concurrent long lived connections, PHP is going to fall over pretty fast. Like you get up to 100, and it's like, no, I'm not, So I addressed that in the conference talk by not having hundreds of like 100 long-lived connections. I really only had one on stage, so everybody could see my screen, and what they were interacting with was my screen, but they were not getting the feedback that I was getting at the same time, like in real time. So since then, I was like, okay, that I always wanted after the conference talk to make it work in PHP. Um, and I thought Franken PHP would just solve it
Yeah,
for me
yeah, we
because
talked
it's
about
written
that
in
quite a
Go.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'd assumed, it uses Go's coroutine, so it can like handle thousands of connections, not a problem. And it's a drop-in web server replacement for something like Nginx. Um, so I loaded up, put it on the site, put it out in the Discord, and pretty quickly it went down. So I was like, okay, something's off here. And then I realized, well, yes, Franken PHP uses Go's coroutines, but it still needs a worker. And when you make blocking calls in PHP, like Redis subscribe, that actually blocks the entire worker. So it can't like one worker can handle hundreds, maybe thousands of connections normally. But if you use a blocking call like subscribe, it's actually going to hold it up. It's kind of like if you think you can multitask, you can do many things, but if the kitchen's on fire, like you're just doing one thing, you're putting out the fire, and you can't multitask with all these other things. Like even calling sleep using PHP sleep for a couple of seconds, that's a blocking call.
that's so bad.
So it's so bad. Like this is just a non-issue in Go and other languages.
Yeah,
Um, so it turns out you need to reach for async runtimes that have addressed this. So I'm using something called Swool, which is a C extension for PHP, which allows you to do async non-blocking stuff. Um, so I'm going to just nerd out a bit here. Essentially, what I have is a Swool server that is doing the async stuff, that is doing non-blocking calls, and then I have a Laravel app using the Datastar package, which calls into Redis from a different connection. So you have that separation there. So normally, when you do async in PHP, it's still PHP, but it looks nothing like PHP. It looks like some other way of programming because it is another way of programming. You have an event loop and you have all these different approaches that you don't normally see in PHP. Uh, with Swool, you can hook into, because it's a very low level thing, it's on the C level, you can use PHP as you would normally and write code that looks like normal PHP code, and it hooks into the APIs that you're using on the C level and makes those async. So it's pretty cool. I was very impressed with the result. The result, however, when I looked at it, um, it's like essentially creating a server, accepting requests, subscribing to Redis, and just sending messages back down to the server. And guess what it looks like in the end?
Go.
It looks exactly like Go. Yeah, it looks like what a Go script would exactly look like. So
Yeah.
I was almost tempted to just write that piece in Go,
Yeah.
because it would scale probably 10 times more. But the idea behind the demo is to do a full PHP demo.
Yeah, it's always a weird thing. Like the irony is, I came from doing Node.js stuff to Go. I ported something over, and it was literally 1/12 the memory, and it was like 6 times faster. And I didn't even know any optimization or anything. Like that's always a hard problem because like I like C, I like Odin, I like Zig. And the irony is you're on this kind of journey of like, hey, I'm getting into like wanting to do scale and stuff and you're moving to Go. And the irony is I'm looking at like, should I be writing this in Odin? Should I be doing direct like lower level things? Because I you always want that like go a little bit further, a little bit farther down. It's a hard and the problem is it's not usually the language. It's the community and the ecosystem and all the tooling around it. And like I see there's real value in the PHP tooling. But yeah, it's kind of like they forgot about all the other stuff in the runtime. It's a weird thing because I really respect the templating and the mentality of PHP, and I wish there was better like support for like modern stuff. There's no reason why PHP can't do this. Um, it's a weird situation for them for sure, and for you, like it's kind of opening your eyes to what's like what is possible. Because even Go is
Yeah,
not the fastest thing, and it's still the weird part about Go for me at least is that it's right on that line of like for me Python is not fast enough. You cannot do all kinds of image processing and all that. Like if I wrote Stellar in Python, it would not be fast enough in my opinion, but goes right on the edge of it's fast enough to match your network connectivity speed. Whereas like if you're doing heavy image processing, so like C is or Odin or any of these kind of things are going to be a better choice. But for most things people write, Go is faster than your network.
yeah. Go is
So
built for modern web applications, right? Whereas PHP, again, it's carrying all this legacy stuff, and it's
yeah,
what
100%.
30 years old or something. So even in PHP, we have a concept called fibers, which make async actually performant. That was added in version 8.1, which isn't that old. Where PHP is currently at 8.4, or 8.5 is around the corner. So just a couple of versions ago is when they optimized for this kind of thing. Yeah, PHP is definitely more about the tooling and less about performance and scale, which is, well, when doing async stuff or doing real time stuff for sure. It can scale quite high, but in the traditional way of using PHP.
Well, and this kind of comes to some things that came up in all the Hacker News shenanigans is people keep thinking that we're against HTMX, and it's just not the case. We just like we found it's kind of like the PHP thing of like, man, this stuff matters if you want to get scale, if you want to do collaborative stuff, if you want to push the web. Um, these performance things really do matter for certain workloads, and those workloads are only getting bigger. So that's why Datastar is the way it is. Like there's reasons behind it. It's not just trying to compete or flex. It's more like originally I wanted these ideas in that space, right? But I really do care about hypermedia, and it's kind of like it's funny to see you go on this journey over this last year of going, yeah, this is fine. I just want to have my, I want to change out Sprig for something, a slightly different interface. And now you're getting pilled on like performance and metrics and what's possible. It's an interesting journey to see from the other side of like, yeah, like this
Yeah,
is part of this is the joy and the benefit of this is that it kind of changes the way you think about things.
yeah. No, that's a really good analogy. It's kind of like PHP is, and things like Laravel or Craft CMS, like they're sufficient for building sites that just output pages and output lists in various forms and content. But as soon as you get into real time collaborative stuff, that's what I've been finding. Yeah, PHP is not suitable, or you got to reach for these extensions that, I mean, they exist. There are probably three of them that are actually well documented, um, but they seem to be outliers, right? Like most people don't know about them or have never used them, or and I don't think it's that they've never had a use case for them. I think it's like my eyes being open to Datastar as opposed to HTMX, right? It's not a one-to-one comparison. It's like they exist on different planes.
Well, and it's very true, especially with the like one of the things I saw in some of the Hacker News stuff, they're like, "Oh, everything old is new again. This is just like running PHP back in the day." And it's like, well, it's simpler like back then, but the amount of stuff you can do is just not the same. That's why, like, I engaged with a lot of comments in that, like, they're just wrong in that it looks similar, but it can do orders of magnitude more stuff, and you still get all the reactivity in the front end and all that stuff. It's just simpler, and that's hard for people to come to terms with. That how can something so small be actually more robust and better than these multi national corporations that are funding like these projects? I don't know.
Well, we've said for a long time, like we should just stop comparing, right? I know we still mention HTMX on the website because that is, where
It's big
Datastar
hypermedia.
sprung from. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's big hypermedia. Yeah,
which is
but
tiny. This is what the funny part is that like any of this, it'd be like people fighting with each other in the back of the Snowpiercer train, while the front is all the React people and spot view people. Like there's no fighting, at least for me, going on here. It's more that like, look, so like if you care about performance and metrics and all these other things, there is an option here to actually push hypermedia forward. If you're happy with like doing stuff like in the 2000s, like that's cool. Go do that. It's perfectly fine. Like, but that's just not where I'm at or where our
yeah,
community is at. So, but yeah, it's
yeah.
very much the Snowpiercer. Like, I don't want to fight here. I want to go up the train and fight up the train. So
Yeah, and we keep getting sucked back into that
I
comparison or
know,
that conversation. But I think the most interesting thing is seeing what people are actually building with Datastar.
100%.
Not talking about the premise of it or what it can compare to, but what people are actually the results of using the tool. And speaking of which, I forgot to mention this. We had a meetup a couple of days ago on Saturday that somebody in the community organized. There were about 15 plus of us there, and a couple of people gave short presentations on how they're using Datastar with CQRS to create pretty amazing things. And it was really cool to see those technical demonstrations or presentations as well. And we had like at least an hour discussion afterwards. So I think we're going to have a repeat of this because it was really interesting. For anyone who missed it and is interested, there is a recording in the Discord, and you can go find it.
My favorite part about
Quickly,
that is
go ahead.
the community part about it. Like we
Yeah,
didn't like Benny is the one who set that up. Someone else recorded. David was doing the record. Like that's exciting that it's now
yeah.
becoming completely not about Datastar at all. Like that's the whole point of like when we talked about DataConf, even when we were talking that thing, is the idea that if we ever did a conference, it's to be mostly about like how people are doing their whole systems or what's the things they're interested in deeper tech because the Datastar part's kind of boring because it just gets out of your way.
I mean, most of the time, as we saw in those presentations, the Datastar part is like 3 data attributes,
Yeah,
and the rest is like all the stuff that's happening on the back end. And we had 3 different people using 3 different languages, right? We had one person in Go, one person in Clojure, and another person in Crossstream, which is actually a project that Andy
yeah,
created
a
himself.
Rust. It's a Rust new shell thing, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. Um, so yeah, finally, I'll put a link to the Blinksy demo in the notes underneath. But yeah, you're right. This morning I was playing with because it, it's just a small idea, right? But it like if you tug on like different parts of it, then like all these patterns can just reveal themselves. So this morning I was like, well, Anders has his billion checkboxes demo, which is it's interesting to do a comparison because he's not rate limiting, but he's doing batching, which is we can go into that maybe another time. But whereas I'm not doing batching because I want it as real time as possible, but in that case I have to do some rate limiting, otherwise people can overload the server. So it's interesting that he's gone to large scale, whereas I'm like, no, it's a 13 by 13 grid, but we can do very interesting things in different approaches. So I was like, well, Anders has this massive canvas, right? And I have this tiny canvas. So I started, I made it so that each time you click or you toggle a cell on the Blinksy demo, if you go to the billion checkboxes demo and you go to position 1313, so 1313 on the X and the Y, you're actually going to see the Blinksy demo embedded inside Anders' checkboxes demo because why not, right? I
Yo,
mean, we
dog,
can
I
do
heard you
this
like
kind of
checkboxes, so I put checkboxes in your checkboxes. It is funny how much people do not understand that that is a rendering demo of like even when you're silly, it's still works. And the fact that he's now embedding your demo in his demo and he doesn't even know or care. I don't know, man. Like, what other framework does this? Like, as they're just like, hey, and how long did that take you to do?
20 minutes. It's
Yeah,
just because it's just making the most complicated part was figuring out how to make a post request to checkboxes demo, right? Which I basically just copy pasted.
from your backend, right?
Yeah, from my backend, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
that's one
I
thing
don't know.
PHP is good at.
Not that you're bitter or anything.
So yeah, it is funny how there's like this now starting this cross pollination of
Yeah.
demos, right?
Yep. No,
Um,
it's pretty great. What you really need to do is hook in to like Google Sheets into his cell demo, and then have the demo. I mean, the one thing like with that talk that I was working on for the Big Sky conference that didn't get picked up was me literally doing like full formula analysis stuff in a spreadsheet with a billion rows. So it was not just the filling in a text box; it was actually doing calculations as well. And the thing is, it's totally possible. Like it's 100% possible to do. And so the interesting thing is, what happens after those? Like you spent 20 minutes, and it's like YOLO. I'm now in your checkbox demo. You can't stop me. But the part is, it's like, okay, now what? Like, what is
right.
going to happen now that we've shown off these kinds of things? And like, what are people going to do with this tech now that that's just a non-issue? Like, it just becomes
Yeah.
an easy. That's easy. So now, where's the interesting stuff going to happen? That's what I'm excited about.
Right. Yeah. For me personally, it's very much what we've been talking about. It's like pushing PHP beyond what I've used PHP for and integrating techniques like PubSub and CQRS and event sourcing, because that was a big part of what my conference talk was about, right? Most people building, like I said, most people using Craft CMS specifically because it was a craft conference are just outputting lists of things. And I'm like, well, look at all the things that we can do. And this is not something that is outside of the realm of possibility. My entire presentation was in the browser, powered by Datastar, with live demos and audience participation. Like it was by far the most extravagant presentation I've ever given. Because many other people, and this is not a criticism, but many other people just have, static PowerPoint presentation slides. And it's just a very, very different experience, right? When you can engage with what the speaker is showing and experience like how fast it is, right? Like
Well,
I,
but even like if I remember right, even your slides were done in Datastar.
yeah, the slides
Yeah,
were
yeah,
HTML with
right.
demos embedded within them. And everybody who was taking part was they were able to interact with the demos, and when the demos were not playing they were told to look at the screen and keep their eyes on the stage.
Yeah, I don't maybe it gets lost on people that like people were interacting with your slides live, like
Yes.
not just because sometimes you'll see people do a live thing in like Emacs or something like that where they're like, hey, like I'm running these slides inside of my slide thing, but rarely do you see someone actually having an interactive demo within their slide. They can interact with their slides, but not everyone reacting with their slides because we get the whole thing of people saying, well, yeah, you can do that with a spa, like the beat slides. There's like a view slide thing. It's like, cool. How do you make that collaborative? And
Right.
that's just like you can't do that. Like that's just
Yeah.
not a thing. Whereas like, oh, you want to make an interactive presentation? Oh, okay. Like that's not a hard thing at all.
Right. Yeah. No, my slides were running on a production VPS, and
Right.
people were accessing that and affecting my the big screen in the conference hall through their mobile devices. Yeah, that's what was happening. It was recorded, so as soon as the
No, I'm excited to
recording
see it.
becomes available, I'll post that.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting to see like what the uptick for people in every. I think that's the part that's also hard is that people see all these real time demos and they don't realize they can. it's just as good, if not better, than most things at just doing CRUD stuff too. Like,
Yeah.
just because we can do this real time stuff, anything that you are doing already in a single threaded thing like PHP or Ruby or any of these other things, like, you can do better in this approach.
Right. That becomes almost trivial, right? That becomes like the
But I
the
don't think I think that's lost on people a lot of
yeah,
the times, that
for sure.
that is so easy. It's almost hard to show because it becomes so small that, like, what do you show? Like, it's a non-issue. So
Yeah.
So if you kind of heard us maybe talk about it in passing, or just a heads up that we have been actively having tiny discussions, like not the details yet, but kind of saying, hey, we're getting to that point where we have 1,600 people in the Discord now. We have 3,300 stars. It may be time to start talking about having a conference, because there's enough people in this field that care about this stuff. And the irony is that a data conf isn't really about Datastar. It's because but it's all backend agnostic, which means we all can come together and have interesting talks, no matter what language it's in. So it's getting about that time. Um, so yeah, that's continue with that. It's becoming a thing in our heads, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. We saw, I mean, you and I chat a lot, and we chat with, people on the team, or people, heavily involved in the project regularly. But there's something very compelling about, you know, actual interactions, whether virtual or in person. But of course, getting a group of people, like 100 plus people, in a room for 2 days or so. This is kind of what we're bouncing around. Like, this would be really a huge opportunity to share and learn together and experience, like, what people are doing with Datastar, and not just on a superficial level, but like, having technical talks. Of course, like, we need to kind of figure out how technical and how low level do we want to get, given that it will mostly be presentations showing backend code and very little Datastar. But um, I think I think you said this during the meetup. Like, it doesn't really matter what language the code is. Like, if because you can still learn from the techniques, and the language is just the expression of that. And then Datastar binds it all together. And Datastar is that last step of taking what the backend generates and then just bringing it down into the browser.
Yeah, no, I'm excited by the idea of, there's something, and this kind of got brought up in the other thing that should be in the Discord, but for me, there's been an interesting thing coming from more of a lower level programming experience, and that things like Handmade Hero really did start pushing people to say, hey, you should understand how this stuff works at a baseline understanding. Hey, there's interesting things if you get rid of the Unities and the Unreals and you, like, start from first principles. There's things that come out of that are better. And the weird thing is, I think we're finally getting to the point where that's needs to happen in the web. Handmade Hero, the network, basically, there was a project, Casey Moriarty, who's known for making Red game tools and a bunch of things there, started making this thing of saying, okay, you made a YouTube stream of hundreds of videos of literally going, okay, from scratch, I think he did it in C or C++. It might have been C++, but was not only using a couple of things, but basically in C, let's start hooking into a Win32 window. Let's start with every single process. And he just works through making games from literal scratch, like just straight DirectX, and just says, okay, we need to start doing stuff. How do we integrate this stuff? And just started from first principles and just work through the problem. And it brought, if you watch some of the conferences that they had, it had Mike Acton, it had the guys from Super Meat Boy, all these things, and they're talking about how they go about their process. And a lot of it is like, you just do the work, and like, you solve the problem, and you care about the machine and all that. So even if you're in web dev, I highly recommend looking at some of the Handmade Hero conference talks. Andrew Kelly's on there talking about Zig and how that works under the hood. Like, they're great talks, and it is completely orthogonal. No one cares what language it's in. They care about, like, what you're trying to do and how you're interacting with the machine and understanding mechanical sympathy, which is, instead of caring so much about developer experience, caring about what the actual machine has to actually do on people's actual hardware. So I think we need more of that in the web, and we don't have anyone smart like Casey, so we'll have to, like, work our way through it until someone smarter comes along. But the point is that the web needs this. Like, we are the backbone of like we're a global sandbox that people get to experience each other's stuff in. People should understand how the machine works underneath the hood. They should understand what the browser is. They should understand the specs. They should understand what CSS can do today. In fact, in that meetup, we were talking about a bunch of backend stuff, but people were like, "Yeah, but I want to hear about some CSS stuff next time." Which again, it sounds like a weird thing for backend people to care, but it's how you present all the interesting things that are happening in your backend. Because without a solid front end UI experience, most of the things that you do in the backend go completely lost. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm noticing that with Stellar, like unless I make the backend look really good and feel good and things, all the things I'm doing in the backend do not matter. So I'm excited for that kind of thing where the web needs to get back to understanding what the web can do. In fact, Remix 3 just dropped, and they literally are going to doing iframes and doing like hypermedia with extra steps. I need to go through the talk and understand exactly what they're doing, but it's in the right direction. But when I watched it, I just went, like the parts that I did watch, I said, well, this is just Datastar with extra steps. Like it actually, they actually took out signals, which I think is a bad play. Um,
Oh,
and they're going to this manual way of doing things that like I just don't think they have. I had a couple of conversations with Ryan Florence a while back, and he was a little dismissive in saying that like you think that I haven't looked at your way of doing things and at your approach. Um, Not that like I don't know about it; it's that I haven't already looked at it and I've dismissed it. And I was like, okay, but then when I look at Remix 3 and what they're actually putting out, it's like I think you did miss something because this has seemed more complicated
right.
than what Datastar allows for. So that's again whatever, but it is an interesting little tidbit for me that like I think this would be simpler. And I'm happy to go up head to head on any of these things. But I've said to him in the past, we can match what your demos do, but I want you to match the way we do collaborative demos. And I want to see what that looks like.
Right.
And that would be more telling to me of what the future of the web holds. So, yeah, it's interesting to see people understanding that the browser can do a lot.
You brought it up, so why don't you give us an update on Stellar and how progress has been?
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. It's funny. I actually went and looked at my GitHub repo, and it was all green there for a while. Because the irony with GitHub like status things, it only goes per commit to main. I think so. The
Oh,
irony, like, it's only about a per commit. It's not like actual active like development. It's only when you commit to main, and it's like that's when you get the green star. So if it looks like I've gone dark for the last few months, it's because I've been going hard on these problems. Stellar has everything that OpenProps and Tailwind supports now uh, worked out. The things that I'm working, there's one more major section that I'm working on that basically, when you have semantic things like H1s through H6s, what's the best way to make it so that these props now automatically filter into those things properly and like get set up nicely and stuff like that? I haven't quite figured out that part, which no one does. Everyone just kind of says
right.
YOLO and makes their version of it. Like the Tailwind typography is its own thing. Open props has their own thing, but making it so that's a configurable thing, I haven't quite figured out what the best way to do that is. But otherwise, the I've gone through a ton of iterations and I'm really liking where we're at. So the irony is that I have something I really like, and it's like, okay, I understand what this is, and I just did not care about the code until I got what I wanted on screen. And now it's like, okay, I need to step back and say, how am I going to make this cacheable? How am I going to make this into something that can be shared with everybody? How do we make it so that we don't get DDoS? Like all the like turning it from an idea and something that's cute as a thing to like, okay, how do we turn this into an actual product that we run for people?
Right.
Especially since the plan is to put it so that it's actually a SaaS that does the stuff for you, but it's also just built into Pro. So like there's an ongoing cost with that. It's going to cost another machine. It's going to cost, like there's going to be real world cost to it. Um, Luckily we're okay with how the funding of it and stuff, but it's going to cost money. So I'm really being cognizant of what going from something that's cute to a real product is a whole other process that I don't think a lot of people really realize is almost starting over in a way. Like, because you have something that's cute, it's like, okay, now I need to cache every single thing. I need to make it so that you have versioning. I need to make it so that you can share things with other people. You need to make it so that you have collaborative ACLs or like having controls on things. Like, there's just a lot more there than people probably realize between like making something that works and making something that works.
Right. It's not your like CSS framework or your like your UI library that you just download and you tweak it and now you can never get updates again because they're out of sync. Like this is actually, and it's a totally different thing. Actually, let me kind of give people an idea of based on what I've seen of how I interpret it.
Yeah, it's funny. You
Um,
haven't seen, you haven't got to use it yet. You haven't got to use. You've been so busy with the
I've got to
RC stuff.
use it. Yeah, I mean,
I know it's so funny.
the website is built using an older version of Stellar, but the visual aspect of it, the online editor, where unlike Tailwind or any of these kind of CSS frameworks or UI libraries that give you a design system, Rocket gives you a design system out of the box, but then it gives you all these toggles and sliders and says, hey, you can tweak your design
Everything.
system and see it change in real time visually, right? So you're not editing JSON configuration files and trying to like second guess, what does this number mean? You're actually like sliding things around, interacting with it, fonts, colors, spacing, radiuses, all of these things that you need for a design system, and you're designing in the browser with a visual editor, all powered by Datastar. And that's the interesting part for me as well, that Datastar is the foundation of this, right? It's Stellar would not be, well, I was going to say possible, but feasible or as quick to build and as
No,
simple to
it's seriously to
implement.
create. No, it's really true because
Yeah,
one of the things that's kind of weird about Stellar, for example, is that it's not using, it's a style sheet generator that doesn't use style sheets. So
right.
every single thing about every single property is an inline style that's generated on the fly as you're changing other things. And it's one of those things where could you do this in a spa? 100%. But to do all the 16-bit color theory stuff and to do all the hundreds of theme things that get created and how they get cached and all that stuff, I would never like, if you go, perfect example, even though all this stuff happens in go try Material Colors editor, like when they're
Mm-hmm.
playing with it, and it's not any faster than mine to actually get color because it takes them a long time. You go to Adobe Color where it's extracting things from an image and it's doing it in the browser, and it's not, it's slower than mine. So it's one of those things where it pushes on the boundaries. It may be the killer app for Datastar that people just go, oh, this is really simple and it seems to be fast enough that I can do real time edits. Why isn't anybody else doing this? And because it's all immediate mode coming from the backend, I can change entire layouts. I can do all kinds of interesting things in a way that I just don't see most spas doing. So the other part that's really interesting that I haven't covered in videos yet because I still have to write the component. But the irony is that's the easiest part, so I keep putting it off. Is as you're editing, if you use these variables on your site, I'm going to make it so there's a web component that automatically keeps track of the SAS's version of that. So as it's changing, you're actively getting an update of it on your page, so that instead of having, you have an editor for like the basic properties and all that stuff, but the real editor is your active live site, which without making any adjustments on your site automatically is up to date with what's going on here. That's like super exciting because it
It's
simplifies things a lot.
That's the ultimate designing in the browser experience, right? Like it's
100%.
you're designing by tweaking your design system.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and
So
for people who are wondering like what it looks like to write it, you're just writing CSS, right? That's the big idea here. You're writing actual CSS, and what Stellar gives you is the variables. So you reference your variables, and those are what get tweaked when you play with the editor.
well, and a perfect example of this, if you go to the Datastar website, go look at the code. It's all just semantic H1s, classes, divs, articles. Like there's very, very, very few classes or styles. Some places, but like we went from a very tailwind heavy utility class everywhere thing to just having nested CSS where we needed it on the pages we needed it, and writing new articles or writing new stuff when you have semantic stuff, it almost feels like writing just in Markdown itself because it's just so simple to get good styling out of the box. I really do feel like semantic styling is the way to go. And I really love what OpenProps was doing. In fact, I reached out to Andy multiple times saying, hey, I want to make this editor for OpenProps. And he just wasn't really interested. So it was like, okay, well, someone needs to do this. And yeah, that's it. Basically is open props on steroids plus plus. Like it's doing
Yeah.
everything open props does and a lot more. So
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. We've been saying Stellar CSS might be the killer app for Datastar because I think people are looking at these demos that are coming out, which we understand are impressive,
The
and
value of them, yeah.
yeah, and I think a lot of people are just seeing these demos and thinking, well, that's kind of cute, but you know, I've never been asked to make a billion checkboxes. But when you see Stellar, you're going to see, oh, this is really useful, and suddenly you're like experiencing a tool powered by Datastar. And then if you share that, and now you and your colleague are collaboratively working on a design system, I think that at that point the penny will drop for many people. And yeah, it may be a case of that takes Datastar, or this entire project, which has Datastar at its core, to another level.
Well, and the other thing too is there's still details because it is built into Pro, the editor part to able to tweak things. We've been toying with the idea of making it so that your stuff is just available to anyone, anywhere, at any time thing too. So like they can get your design system, but they're just not editable. I don't know if that makes sense. We're still kind of figuring that out, but the editor part 100% is going to be in Pro. And the whole point of Pro is that like, look, people pay for tools and convenience. Could you do this by hand? Yes. Like, do we are trying to make it so it's better and easier to modify and handle as a team and all this stuff? Yes, you should get the value out of this right away. But yeah, we found very much that people don't pay for support. They don't pay for, and also people may not realize. Like I work at Synadia and we work on Nats all the time. I know what the open source uh, pay for support model looks like. Trust me, that is a like people don't say that that's what they want, but it's not. Like they don't pay for support. And also the problem is like for example, Nats in most situations works really really good, and people just don't have the problems. So people don't pay for um, preventative care; they pay for
Right.
catastrophic care. And that is I don't know if that's just an American thing or what, but like people will not pay for an ounce of prevention, and that's fine. Like we've already accepted that, and that's why the whole
That
kerfuffle
is
around.
human nature, right? Like it's like when
Yeah,
you start caring about security, when your site gets hacked, right?
well, and that's the kind of the funny thing about, and I don't want to get into it too much, but the irony with the whole Hacker News thing and people saying that we're rug pulling and all this stuff. So people are very very clear. We had the beta. We're like, oh, we have a whole new paradigm for how we do signals and the underlying tech. And we did an entire rewrite, like from scratch rewrite of everything. And while we were in the middle of that, starting over, basically, we forked our own project. Like we started over completely blank files going, okay, what can we take the ideas from and pull it into this new idea? When we did that, we said, do we even want to make these plugins that we don't really agree with? And the kind of the idea was, hey, we don't think people should use these, but if they do use them, either they're for enterprises that are moving something from a SPA to Datastar, or it's people that are actively working against the framework. Either way, we think that like it's perfectly fine to like put those in a pro level if we're making new plugins. So that's what it was. It was basically us saying we are forking our own thing, which everyone's allowed to do. Anyone could do from anywhere. Anyone could take in the beta and said we're going to fork this and do our own thing. We ended up doing that with our own thing, and then we just changed basically main to be the new like the new style. So
Right.
I don't know
So
how to
the
make
Git
it more clear.
history contains, the
Yeah,
old
100%.
version of the plugins, which don't work anymore because they were completely
No,
rewritten. And we're really just talking about a couple of plugins that were part of the beta that are now in pro. And you even published an essay, Greedy Developer, just a
yeah.
couple of days ago, in which you showed here's how you do the so a couple of the pro plugins. Here's how you write them in the free version. Like it's a one line thing, right? Or maybe 2-3 lines of code.
I mean,
That's
some of
it.
them are the newer versions are more complicated because we're trying to. It gets it. It's such a foot gun that we're trying to help in some ways, but we also like disagree with you. So it's one of those things of
Yeah.
like I'm fine with charging someone, even in an open source project, charging you to say like if you're gonna go against what I tell you to do, like cool, have some skin in the game, have a thing for support. The irony is the guy who wrote the original thing, the greedy developer that was telling me to f off and that I'm a terrible person. He actively said that this is a hobby for him. His stuff is running fine. He found a way to do it without the pro stuff, and like it just took him more effort, which is like yes. You have to do more effort to
Yes.
do the wrong thing. I don't feel bad for you. Like that's like you're not going to hurt my feelings by telling me to f off for something that you don't care enough about to put your effort into. If this is a hobby for you, take some ownership, because there's nothing with the new stuff, with Rocket, with Stellar, with anything that's in Pro, that isn't playing by the exact same rules as everybody else. It in
Right.
some ways it's not Pro, it's more like things that we want to work on that are beyond, like, that we want to build on top of Datastar's engine. It's hard to name things. Like, naming is hard. Like, people have said that in programming before, I guess. But the idea is that it's things that we think are Pro, and we get to decide, because it's MIT. We get to make the plugins. We decide how we want.
Yeah.
You have no say in this. Like,
Yeah.
YOLO. Like, again, people expect things that are just, it's a weird thing, I guess, because like I started doing stuff in the 90s, and you see some MIT code, you're super stoked because you're like, oh, I get to see what their ideas and their intent, and I can make it my own thing. I can do interesting things with it. Now it's this weird like social construct that you have to you have to give away things for free forever, even if you change your mind. And I just will not abide by that. Like, you don't get to tell me what I get to do. That's the whole point of MIT. We all are playing by the same rules. So if
Right.
you want to fork it because you disagree with me, I'm 100% on board with you fork it. If you make a better version, I can't wait to see it, because guess what? If it's also MIT, get to take the things that I think make sense, and like we get to like collaborate even if you don't like it. Like,
Right.
that's the point of this stuff in general.
Yeah, and this kind of reflects like the dark side of open source. And you
Mhm.
linked to a video, an interview video with DHH, where he talks about that aspect of open source. I recently was reminded of a Rich Hickey article called "Open Source is Not About You," where he again talks about those same things, and that's probably a decade old, if not more. So it's like, yes, this is like open source has an ugly side, and sometimes we're experiencing it. It's one of the reasons, though, I think we should just focus on like what the community is building and
Yeah.
what we're making possible. And it's just easy to be distracted when people are making essentially what is false accusations, or accusations that are just not grounded in any real sense of reality.
Well, and just so, and also so people, because I it's kind of like I almost need to say things that I've said multiple times, but have a video that we can point to, so we don't. The whole reason why I wrote that essay was to be like, I don't want to have to say this over and over again, so I'm
Right.
just going to make it once and make something that I can point to. I will say on record, like, to anyone listening, if you don't like my tone, stop listening. Like, there's things where I like, my thing is, I don't know, like in the 80s there was this whole like yuppie thing of like very business, like everything's about Wall Street. Like, it was a very like different time, and all of a sudden the punk thing was a counterculture thing to that. The cool part is, like, you may not like my tone, you may not like my way of dealing with things, but I talk about performance and metrics and all these things, and I will happily fight with you on those things. If you're trying to do a thing against like the project, cool, come bring code and let's have a real discussion. Otherwise, I don't care if you don't like my tone. Like, you don't have to listen. I don't care. Like, you can't hurt me in this, because the only thing I care about is performance and metrics and trying to help people that are actively helping themselves. So
Right.
everyone that's trying to tone police the like way we react to things, I don't care. You can't hurt me.
Right. Yeah. If you don't like Datastar, don't use it. If you don't
Yeah,
want to buy Datastar Pro, don't buy it. We're not even asking you to. We're telling you actively don't,
yeah.
unless you have some like need for something. One of the conveniences it provides, or Rocket, or Stellar, or
Well,
Inspector.
like Inspector, I'll tell you, even though Stellar uses very few signals on each page, it's been great. It's been wonderful. Like, I think Inspector is worth all the money in the first place, and also all the pro plugins. People don't like. We really talked about just getting rid of them, just completely removing them. So, like, the irony is that it probably would have been better that way. But I honestly think that even if we didn't do that, people would have found something else to be mad about in some other way, because we're just pushing like strings, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah, no, there are some plugins. I know we say for most use cases, you don't need them. Use the free version. There are some plugins like Animate, Query String, Sync, Query String, um, that I think are like they're a decent amount of code. They provide a decent amount of functionality as well for the right use case.
yeah,
But
it's
let's let's get back to more interesting things. We were talking about Rocket, Stellar. To continue the theme of things that have not yet materialized, or at least have not been publicized, I've been working on a merch shop,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting t-shirt you're wearing there, Delaney.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was thinking, well, if we were to do merch, what would the Datastar way of doing that be? Right? Like, do we? Because a lot of people just white label some shop, or not even white label, just send you off to some shop where they've thrown some designs on T-shirts or whatever.
Drop shipping and
Um,
all that. Yeah.
I was like, well, I want to do this the Datastar way, and I kind of explored, and I ended up building an e-commerce page or shop in Go. Um, on the site. So it's not yet live, but we have some designs. What has taken the most amount of time, because I've done a lot of e-commerce builds, but always using an e-commerce framework or an e-commerce plugin. And for some reason, I chose to do it from scratch using Go. It was a great learning experience. I was reminded of why e-commerce is hard, because we want to ship globally, and that means shipping, that means taxes, that means things like stock, all of these things. We're using a print on demand supplier, and I've learned so much about print on demand, more than I ever thought I'd ever need to know.
But this is good,
Uh,
right? Like you're
this
expanding your.
is yes, yes. But not all print on demand supplier are made equal. I've like gone through quite a few to find one that like actually has good quality consistently, and the shipping isn't. Um, like it doesn't depend on where you are in the world. You're going to get it within a reasonable amount of time. You're not going to have to wait 3 months for it. So there's all these things. But yes, we have a rocket tee, which is what you're wearing, and a couple of other things
I don't even know what
coming in
they
the pipeline.
are. That's
No, you
awesome.
don't.
Like I don't even get to. People think that it like this is somehow like about me, and it's like it actively is not about me most of the time, and I love it. Like it makes me like the thing that Benny did. It's great. Like it's not like I'm so excited that this is becoming the thing that like I'm looking forward to seeing what the merch shop has.
Yeah.
Um,
All
like
you know is that you got a T-shirt out of this so
I
far,
got a
but
T-shirt out of
otherwise,
it. Yeah,
I've been working in secret, which is my preferred way of working, especially when I'm like not sure about how the outcome's going to be. But
yeah.
it's been an experience, and
Oh, that's great.
I had to step away from it because of the travel and the conference and stuff. But I'll get back to it soon, and once that's available, you will be able to get some Datastar merch if you like.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sure something is going to say it's a cult and definitely not a cult or something like that. Like, there'll be definitely something like that. Is my guess? Is
I
that
mean,
at
what
all?
what you're well so far. I've been focusing on like the print on demand stuff and
Okay.
the shipping and taxes side of things. The one that you're wearing is actually really cool when you see it in person,
Yeah, no,
because
it looks really
it's
good.
it's confusing because everything is obviously sharp, and then you see a pixelated rocket. So there's this kind of like, I don't know, there's this visual confusion that takes place. Um, anyway, I think we've covered everything. One thing I see on my notes is that, do you know Built With or Wappalyzer? They're like
No,
they're
I
like
don't know these.
browser extensions, and they're also websites that you can visit, and then you can say like, show me all websites built with this
Oh,
technology.
okay, interesting.
I use Wappalyzer as a Firefox extension, but you can get them for Chrome and all these things. So they're pretty cool because you can quickly discover what tech a website is built on. So I managed to get Datastar into both of them. So
Nice.
I don't know how long it takes for them to start collecting that data about websites, but soon, if not already now, you'll be able to start seeing like what sites are built using Datastar, or when you visit a site and you inspect the tech that it's using, Datastar will be recognized there. So that's pretty cool.
No, that's interesting. That's all the kind of stuff that I don't ever think about. Like that's you need an adult in the room. People listening, like no matter what you're doing, you can't go off and do silly things like the stuff I'm up to without like adult supervision. Like,
Well, we've said this here before. Like we kind of we work very well together, but we're working like on different levels, right? So
yeah,
while I'm obsessing over like
a
a single
colon.
character, a colon,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
You're like taking on Tailwind CSS and like trying to fix
not just that. Like
CSS. Yeah.
yeah, I'm taking on Tailwind. I'm basically saying Tailwind. Like my superpower, my weakness is that I have a lot of hubris, and that like, oh, I'll take that on. Like I like don't think about the consequences. So, uh, too much to Ben's chagrin. Yes, I'm trying to take on uh Google's lit stuff. I'm trying to take on Tailwind directly, and that I also like in the middle of this was like, huh, I have some ideas for a new language as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which like you just for those that don't watch the videos, Ben's eyes just rolled because yeah, he I made him like start doing some reading, so it's pretty funny. Like but the irony is I could
I
not
feel
do
like
this
I'm
without.
like 5 steps behind you, right? Like I'm trying to get RC6 out the door and then Rocket, and then you're already like inventing your own Lisp
Not a
or your
lisp.
own a Lisp that's not a Lisp.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but the thing is that I feel the freedom to do those things because I know everything is in good hands. Like the RC6 stuff, I've actively been out of it
Hmm.
in kind of a intentional way. In that I know Ben and Johnny have it covered. Like I know that you guys have it covered and you care about the right things. Like I don't have to worry about it. Whereas I used to, fret over every line. Now I'm like, okay, like this is
Right.
out of my hands now, which is great. Like that's what you want. You don't like I'm really good at starting things and like having a team that can actually care about the internal details and think about everybody else's things beyond me is great. Like I this is the part that I'm stoked on. So like thank you again and thank you to Johnny for all the effort you guys put into this stuff because it
Yeah. Well,
it
I
adds
feel
up.
like you should not be distracted by such earthly matters as like pro sales or
I have to stare
or
into my orb.
colons.
Hold on, let me stare into my orb
So
for you, buddy.
not looking over. All right, we'll try to be back more regularly, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. We
We're
just got
busy building and traveling and yeah,
yeah.
life.
Yeah, life for sure. No, I'm really looking forward to this next little bit and seeing what people build. And if there's things about the conference, I know you put up a poll about like where the conference should be in the Discord. But if people in the YouTube comments or something like that want to tell us like, hey, we would totally come. Right now, it seems like
Oh, I'm sure everyone has an opinion on where they'd
I'm
like it
sure,
to
but
be.
like it's like the two places that have been brought up is Berlin and I think in Las Vegas, obviously, because I'm in Vegas. So like
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's going to be the US or Europe, just because that's where we're on the ground and it makes the most sense to. And there's nothing stopping us from doing both, right? Like it's just for the first one, we just want to ensure that people can get there, like physically travel to the place. So
Look, as long as if it's in Berlin or wherever it's called data-conf colon Eurotrash, I'm 100% on board with it being there. Not a problem. Um, yeah, it's not like it's a bad idea. It'd be fun to go either way to both locations. I don't think we have enough people to go to have a two different conferences going, but man, you never know, right? Like I remember when PAX first came up, and it was just like a tiny little thing, and then it became this huge deal. You never know with this stuff, right? Like
yeah,
so, you just got to find people that really care about their craft and care about making things better, and that has almost nothing to do with data.
it's also difficult. We like to judge the size of the community, right? Like we
Mhm.
tend to look at Discord members and GitHub stars, which the GitHub stars are definitely misleading. As are like tons of people are not in Discord, so it's difficult to gauge. But my feeling is like a data conf where we talk not only it's not specific to Datastar, but the ideas around Datastar. I think we could get a lot of interest, and I mean, it's not about how many people we can get. It's just can we get enough people to fill a room and have some interesting talks. And I'm
100%.
pretty confident that we can.
Yes, there's
All right,
dozens of us, literally dozens.
dozens. All right. See everyone next time.
All right, have a good
And
one.
RC6 coming soon, if not already dropped.
All right,
Take care.
see you guys.